الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه صدق الله العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله واللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين رب العالمين. The importance of the Quran in our lives as believers and as Muslims is undeniable and unquestionable. And along with that conviction in the Quran and that we take the Quran as the book of guidance for ourselves and our lives and our families, also along with that comes the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and whatever he was given and whatever he said and whatever he did in his practices and his teachings, we should also follow that. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ, that whatever the messenger came with, take it. Whatever the messenger gave you, take it. Just like the Quran is our primary source, the sunnah and of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not very far behind it. They go hand in hand. The Quran and the Sunnah, it's very important for a believer to live by these two things. So understanding the importance of the hadith and also of the sunnah specifically of the Messenger ﷺ is extremely important. And on that note, there are 4 hadith that we'll discuss today and I want to give a preface before I actually go into these 4 hadith. There's a man by the name of Abu Dawood Asdi as-Sijistani, and he said, كتبت 500,000 hadith عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I collected 500,000 hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said that he compiled this into a book. And we know this book probably, it's Sunan Abi Dawood. And so this man who collected over 500,000 hadith, he said that it's enough for a believer to follow 4 hadith, and that's enough for him. So out of all of the hadith that he actually collected, he said that there are 4 of these that if a believer takes and understands and implements in his or her life, then it is enough for him or her. And the importance of this book, Man kana lahu Abu Dawood fi baytihi falahu nabiyyun yantiq, some scholars say, that the people, a person who actually has Abu Dawood in his house, it's as though he has a prophet speaking to him. So he says, وَيَكْفِي لِلْمَرْءِ مِنْ دِينِهِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَحَادِيث. Out of all of these ahadith, 4 are enough for a believer. And what are these 4 ahadith? Obviously, we can't do justice to these 4 ahadith, but these ahadith are so relevant to us today, as we'll see as we go through them. And we'll try our best to cover and take as many lessons from them as we can. The first ahadith, or the first hadith, is very well known, is very popular, and is the first hadith in many books of hadith, and that's إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That all actions are based on intention. So the question for myself and the question for every single one of you is, what are you intending? And what am I intending? And what does that infer, or what does that imply? The question we need to ask is, where is my heart? And where is your heart? In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, تَقَطَّعَتْ بِهِمُ الْأَسْبَابِ. He said that the means on the Day of Judgment will be severed. The ties on the Day of Judgment will be severed. So Ibn Abbas, he's asked, what's the meaning of this word in this ayah, asbab? And he said that this refers to mawaddah, this refers to love. And I want you to think about what that means. Right? Every action that we do, everything that we do in this life is based on this feeling, this emotion of love. There is nothing that anybody does or anybody is doing on the face of this earth currently that is not based on this emotion of love. Even the things that we fear, we do because of the love for its opposite. We fear not being able to take care of our family, so we love having a job and taking care of our family, and taking care of them and sustaining them. So everything is based around this notion of love. So the question is, where is our heart? There's a saying, مَنْ أَحَبَّ شَيْئًا أَكْثَرَ مِنْ ذِكْرِهِ, that whoever loves something increases its remembrance of it. There's another saying that a man lies hidden under his tongue, وَاللِّسَانُ مُتَرْجِمُ الْقَلْبِ, and that the tongue is the translator of the heart. What do you talk about often? That will show you where your heart is. If you talk about sports often, then that means you love sports. If you talk about the dunya often, that means you love dunya. If you talk about women often, that means you love women. If you talk about money often, that means you love money. So what's on your tongue and what you're discussing quite frequently has or shows what's inside of your heart. So where is your heart and where is my heart? This is what this hadith is asking us. And this hadith is, Umar radiallahu anhu narrates this hadith on the occasion of a man who's known as Muhajir Qais. When the believers were migrating to Medina, this man, he didn't migrate for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. The hadith tells us that this man migrated instead to marry a woman. Because a woman known as Qais there in Medina said, if you come here, then I will marry you. So the hadith goes, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Then whoever makes hijrah or migration for Allah and His Messenger, then his or her reward is as though he did it for Allah and His Messenger. فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ إِمْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then whoever does hijrah for the dunya, something of the dunya, or to marry someone, to marry a woman, then the reward for that person is مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ, for whatever that person intended. In the first instance, the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith repeats. He says the person made hijrah for Allah and His Messenger, so he got the reward for doing it for Allah and His Messenger. But the second part, he doesn't repeat it. He doesn't say, so whoever made hijrah for the dunya gets the reward of the dunya. No, he said, whoever makes hijrah for the dunya or to marry a person, he gets for whatever he intended. The second intention is so low that he doesn't even repeat it again. And the interesting thing about this hadith, and it's a foundational concept in our deen, is that the action is the same. The action didn't change. The person in both instances makes hijrah. But if the intention is good, if the intention is right, then the reward is good as well. Ibn al-Hajj, he says that even lahu that we do, even the normal things of daily life that we do, there should be a good intention behind them. And if you have a good intention behind any action, then that becomes worship for you. One of my teachers told me this, and I'll never forget it, that you can make any action in your life a means of worship. And it can become an ibadah for you and a reward for you. How? When before you go to sleep, you make an intention. Before you use the bathroom, you make an intention. Before you eat and after you eat, you make an intention. Before you drive, you make an intention. Before you're intimate with your spouse, you make an intention. Everything that you do on a regular basis, you're going to do anyway. The action is the same. It's going to happen. Why not just take a second and fix the intention for why you're doing it and make it for the sake of Allah and clarify that intention, and that will become worship for you, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why this concept for us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, is so foundational, and we can inshallah benefit from it. The second hadith is narrated by Anas Abu Hamza. He says, the Prophet ﷺ said, مِنْ حُسْنِ إِسْلَامِ الْمَرْءِ تَرْكُهُ مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. From the beautiful Islam of a person is that he minds his own business. A man once asked Imam al-Shafi'i, what's your age? How old are you? And he says, أَقْبِلْ عَلَى شَأْنِكَ, mind your own business. So the man said, well, I just asked for your age. He said, I once asked Imam Malik that question and he told me to mind my own business, and so I'm telling you to mind your own business. There's a story, or Imam al-Ghazali, he said that the business of a scholar is scholarship, the business of a mechanic is to fix things, and the business of a doctor is the bodies. One of the Salaf was once passing by a house, and it was a nice house, and he asked someone who was next to him, whose house is this? The man told him, and they later saw this person crying. And so they asked him, why are you crying? And he said, there was no purpose, there was no use of me asking whose house this is. It was for my own pleasure, it was just so that I could know. And so look at the vigilance of these people, of our righteous predecessors, and how vigilant they were of their tongues, and of their time, and of minding their own business, of not getting into things that do not relate to them. There's a story that Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was once sharing about Sheikh Al-Sawi. He was traveling with him once, and he was talking to a person who was asking him some questions about fiqh, or just about general Islamic rulings. And so the Sheikh Al-Sawi, he tells him something. He tells him like a fatwa or ruling or something. He says, but Sheikh, what about the ayah? وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. He references an ayah from the Quran, and he says, what about the ayah that says, oh, but what about whoever doesn't rule by the law of Allah, then those people will be from the disbelievers. So Sheikh Al-Sawi is very humble, and he's a hafidh as well. So he sits there and he says, oh person, can you remind me what the ayah is before this ayah that you just referenced? The man doesn't know. Then he says, can you tell me the ayah that comes after this verse? The man says, I don't know. So the Sheikh Al-Sawi, he says to him, what do you do? And he says, I'm an auto mechanic. So he said, fix cars and stick to doing that. Right? There are so many of us that get into topics in areas of knowledge and expertise when we don't have expertise in that area. Many of us, just because we've read a hadith, or we've read the translation, or just because we've watched a lecture on an ayah or something, we think we know the meaning of it. We think that we can act like scholars and talk about the Quran and talk about Allah like that, and that's not the case. Imagine if a person who read just some medical books, who didn't actually study medicine properly and formally, and that person started giving medical rulings. It doesn't make any sense. So how do any of us do this when it comes to Islam? We should make sure that we stick to what we are concerned with. And the last part is the most important. مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. What doesn't concern us? We live in a world in which everyone, for the most part, is concerned with other people. We're concerned with other people's lives. We watch hours and hours of vlogs on YouTube that are of other people's lives. We watch videos and TV shows, MTV Cribs, other reality shows that have to do with other people's lives. This entire world today has to do with other people's lives. In our own lives, we're not even focusing on them. We're not even focusing on our own business. We have so much to work on in our own lives. We have so many struggles and challenges that we're facing that we need to work through, and yet we're busy looking at other people's lives. So we need to mind our own business. That's the second hadith. The third hadith is لا يكون المؤمن مؤمنا حتى يرضى لأخيه ما يرضى لنفسه. In the more popular version that's known, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you truly believes. You are not a true believer until you accept or until you wish or you love for your brother or for your sister what you love for yourself. And this is called the golden rule. Do unto yourself, do unto others as you would want done unto you or yourself. And what's interesting about this hadith specifically is that the brotherhood mentioned here, the fact that the way we should care about other people and that we should treat them the way we want to be treated, just like ourselves, is that most scholars say that this brotherhood refers not just to Muslims. This hadith, the meaning in the interpretation of this hadith is not that we should only treat believers and Muslim brothers and sisters the way we would like to be treated, but this refers to all of humanity. The Prophet ﷺ, he was sitting with the Sahaba, he says, لا تؤمنوا حتى تراحموا, that you will not truly believe until you are merciful amongst yourselves. So the Sahaba, they're sitting there, they're confused. They say, Ya Rasulullah, we are all merciful with with each other. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, لَيْسَ رَحْمَةُ أَحَدِكُمْ صَاحِبُهُ. This is not the mercy that you show to those who are close to you, وَلَكِنَّهَا رَحْمَةُ الْعَامَّةِ. But this rather is the mercy that is universal, mercy that is shown to everyone. So if you like kindness for yourself, then you should be kind to others. And it's very easy for any one of us to be merciful towards those who are close to us, towards our family members, towards our friends. Those who are nice to us, it's easy to be nice back to them. But it's difficult, and this hadith really comes into practice when a person is hating on you, when a person is insulting you, when a person is ridiculing you, when a person is doing hateful things against you. That's when this hadith comes into practice. How do you react to that person? And what do you do in that situation? And this is especially relevant today, right? We know of what's going on in this country with the new president, with the new government and whatnot. And even the situation that happened locally, not just locally, but it happened all over the country. But at the airports where people were being detained and refugees are being detained and they're not being granted entrance into this country. And in this situation, subhanAllah, I went to the rally and thousands of people went to the rallies. For those of you who didn't, I'm telling you, you missed out. And this is an opportunity for every one of us to stand for those that are less fortunate, to stand for those who are facing injustice and oppression, right? And imagine, just for a second, if it was your mother, if it was your father, if it was your sibling or your friend or someone, your daughter or your son, you would be there for 2-3 days straight until your family member or your friend got out. So this is the hadith that is really important to understand. It's really relevant right now and today in the situation that we're facing, that we should treat others the way we want to be treated. And so if you want kindness for yourself, you should want kindness even for those who hate Islam and who are against us and who are the means and the cause of the injustice. We should even still for them want mercy and kindness. And if you want guidance for yourself, and if you want Jannah for yourself, then you should want guidance for them, and you should want Jannah for them as well. There are a few other hadith and sayings around this. For example, مَنْ لَا يَرْحَمْ لَا يُرْحَمْ, that the one who does not show mercy is not shown mercy. There's also إِرْحَمُوا مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَرْحَمْكُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ, that show mercy to those on the earth, and the one who is in the sky, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show you mercy. Right? There's also a Christian saying that judge not lest ye be judged, for by the standard by which ye judge, you too shall also be judged. That the way you judge other people, the way you treat other people, expect to be treated the same way. But if you show mercy to those people around you, then expect to be shown mercy from Allah. If you want justice for every single thing, and you don't want mercy, you don't want to show kindness, then expect the same thing not only from other people, but from Allah as well. And good luck with that. Good luck with receiving justice from Allah. As I mentioned even in my previous khutbah, we don't want justice from Allah, we want mercy from Allah for ourselves. So if we want mercy from Allah towards us, then we should show mercy to other people. And the fourth and the final hadith is إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنْ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنْ وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. That no doubt the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And between the halal and the haram are matters that are doubtful and are in the gray area about which most people have very little to no knowledge. And this is interesting because sometimes we think of this hadith and we only think of one implication, that yes, there are halal things and haram things and we should stay away from doubtful matters. But it's much more than that. This dunya is not a matter, is not a place of clarity. It's darul intizaj, it's a place of, it's non-discriminatory. For example, لا تصيبن الذين ظلموا منكم خاصة. Right? وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. That fear or be aware of tests and trials that will not only affect those who are the wrongful doers amongst you. When a tornado or a tsunami or any natural disaster hits, it doesn't matter if a person is good looking or not good looking. It doesn't matter if a person is good or bad. That disaster takes everybody. This dunya is not the place where we can discriminate and distinguish that way. When we're sitting on the train, there's a person next to you who's an angel, who's a really good person. There's a person next to you who's a terrible person, who's a pedophile, who's a domestic abuser. That person could be anything. But this dunya is not the place for us to make those judgments and for us to make those decisions. That's for Allah in the day of judgment. فَرِيقٌ فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ, on the day of judgment. That on that day there will be discrimination. On that day there will be true justice with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some people will go to hellfire and some people will go to Jannah. And so we have to understand that this dunya is non-discriminatory, because a lot of times what happens is that when bad things happen, when bad things are happening around the world, we ask the question, why are these things happening? But know that true justice, ultimate justice, will be given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will be delivered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam later in this hadith, he says that whoever is able to protect him or herself from the doubtful matters, then he or she will have honor. Then he will maintain his or her honor. He or she will maintain his or her honor. But whoever, فَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ, that whoever falls into the doubtful matters, whoever falls into that gray area that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, then that person is at risk, is at high risk of falling into the haram. And then he says, أَلَا إِنَّ فِي الْقَلْبِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ. That this part of our body, which is the heart, that when this is pure, then the entire body is pure. But if this heart is hurt and is infected with diseases, then the entire body will hurt and will be infected. And this is the heart. And I want you to think about these 4 hadith as we conclude this khutbah. These 4 hadith, just for those of you who weren't here at the beginning of the khutbah when I mentioned it, Abu Dawood, who's the author of Sunan Abi Dawood, who collected over 500,000 hadith, he said that out of all of these hadith, there are 4 that are comprehensive, that are enough for a believer if he or she takes them and implements them into his or her life. And so these 4 hadith I want you to think about and how they are all related, because they all have to do with our hearts. When you think about the first hadith about intention, it obviously has to do with your heart. When you think about treating others the way you want to be treated, it has to do with your heart. When you think about minding your own business, it has to do with your heart. Is your heart concerned with what you have to be concerned with and about what your final destination is in the next life? Or are you concerned with other people and forgetting about yourself? And this 4th one also has to do with the heart. And the reason this last one, this 4th hadith, ends with the heart is because when you stay in the halal, then your heart will remain pure. But when you go into the haram, or you fall into even the doubtful matters, then your heart is at risk of getting infected. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify all of our intentions in everything that we do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow even the normal daily habits that we have and activities that we do to have the right intention for them so that they may serve as worship for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to show mercy to other people and treat others as we would like to be treated. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to apply what we have discussed today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us mind our own business and keep ourselves and judge ourselves and make ourselves ready for the day of judgment and for the next life, rather than focusing on other people. And finally, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us stay only in the halal and make us and help us avoid the haram and also the doubtful matters. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد عباد الله رحمكم الله اتقوا الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Sorry, before we actually stand, I forgot to make an announcement on behalf of Epic and on behalf of the Board of Directors that tomorrow there's actually a legal seminar with regards to our rights and with regards to a lot of the recent incidents that have occurred. And so it's very important for every one of us to understand our rights in these turbulent times. So there's a seminar happening here at Epic tomorrow, inshallah, and everyone is invited. And also the annual Epic fundraiser is happening on February the 18th. You all are also requested to join us on that day. Jazakallah khairan. Aqim as-salah.